Why would you spend several £100 on a motorcycle helmet when you get one for a fraction of the price? Let's find out. So both of these helmets do meet EC 2205, so they're both tested to a specific standard to provide safety in the event of a crash. But do make sure, if you're on a tight budget, that you always buy from a reputable store, because there are fakes out there, there is some crap out there that could be potentially lethal. So if you need to buy a cheap lid, or if you buy an expensive lid, buy from a reputable store. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. But anyway, if you check out the link in the description, you'll find reviews to lids from £50 to £1,000. So whatever you buy, you know, we've got you covered. Now, a premium brand like Arai, you are paying to a certain extent for the brand name, but there is a lot of money that goes into research and development. And as we'll find out now, there is quite a difference in the construction and the material. So let's get a bit deeper inside. Now, Arai makes its outer shells extremely tough. It believes that that's the best way of having safety, and they are strong. I mean, this is one from an RX-7, and it's super hard. If you look at some of the details on here, you can see you can see the fibres in it, you can see the fibres in the resin. If we look here, you can see this, what's called the peripheral belt. Now it's just above the visor aperture, and the idea of that is when any impact hits a helmet, the idea is that the force is spread across the outer shell before being dissipated through the inner liner before it hits your head. By having it tougher here, it means they can have a slightly thinner inner polystyrene. And that means when it's on your head and you go into a tuck onto a sports bike, so in a racing tuck, no good for me if I'm looking at my glasses, but if you're in a racing tuck, the minimal amount of material you have here means you can get your head right down and look up the track. If that's thicker, it restricts your vision, so you have to try and tip your head back. But anyway, that's why they put that on there. You can also see this reinforcement in here. Now, that's partly to do with, this hasn't had any of the vent holes drilled in it. There's a lot of vents on the RX-7. That's part of keeping the structure super tough, even when it's got holes drilled in it. And you can see this net as well, that's a structural net. That, again, adds even more strength to this resin fibre mix. I've actually got, because this is the RX-7, that's the most expensive Arai you can buy. This one, I believe this is from a Renegade looking at the vents. You can still see, even though this is one of the cheaper of the Arais, or one of the less expensive of the Arais, still as strong as anything. And it's still got all this reinforcement, still a really tough lid. Stand on it again. They're strong. So looking at that, you know, you can see that that is really hard, and the flex on here's our cut up one, it's still, you know, that's the thinnest part there. It's still got some strength. If we have a look at this thermoplastic one, oh, that is quite a difference. Now, to me, having a really tough outer and a softer inner makes sense, but all I'm saying here is they both meet the requirements of ECE testing, and you'll see differences in the sharp ratings between thermoplastic and fiberglass or composite fiber lids. What we're talking about here is why some lids are more expensive than others besides the branding. And here you can see this, yeah, that is super flexy. Yeah, it's tough. So that's one of your differences. Okay, so let's have a look at the soft inner shells now. They're typically expanded polystyrene, but they can vary massively between helmets. And again, we're looking at what makes one cheaper. So let's look at this cheaper one. This is a really cheap helmet. You can see that it's just a piece of polystyrene. It's quite simply one piece, and that force from the, in fact, actually, it's two pieces. Take that back. We've got a separate section in here. And that is a softer piece of polystyrene than this outer. And you can see that's just in the crown. So on your head, the idea is that's one of the key impact test points in any of the testing. So the force transmitted in there, they're trying to reduce that force transmitted by having the hard and the soft, so it spreads that load. They're still quite a simple design. You can see there's not much kind of there. And again, you know, we've got another polystyrene here with the Arai, but you might notice there's different colours here. And that's one of the things that goes towards making this a more expensive helmet. These different colours are actually different densities of polystyrene. And what Arai does is molds these different densities into one. So you've got the structural integrity of a single piece of polystyrene, but it's with variable density within it. So, and actually the softness of that is so soft. It's a massive difference between this. That is a lot harder than that. Again, I'm not trying to say one is better than the other. Arai will tell you that having this hard, really hard outer shell and a very soft inner means less force is going to be transmitted to your brain over and above the testing standards. All I'm saying is the difference in how these are made. And you can see the complexity in this polystyrene shell is a massive difference. Also, even the way that the inner liner, where it's just the material that's fitted to this shell, you can see the way it's fitted on and quite neatly done. Here we've got sellotape holding it together. That's holding that liner on, and we've got a bit glued on here. So they both do their purpose, but they are quite different. So let's take a look at the liners, which are, you know, the bit that touches your head. They're typically designed to wick away sweat. They might be antimicrobial to reduce the build-up of bacteria, which can make them smell. And in a lot of lids, typically even in the cheaper lids, you'll find that they're removable. There are some expensive lids that don't have removable linings, but making them removable just makes them easier to clean. So if we compare the two here, this one actually isn't removable on this cheap helmet, but you can see it's quite simple. It's foam, it's got this lining material and an extra bit of foam up the top there. It's quite simple. We can't really, if we try and get this. There we go. So there's the cheek pad. Obviously this isn't a removable one. You can see the cheek pad is made up of the bit of polystyrene and multiple layers of foam to get the right fit across your cheek. So this Arai has got removable cheek pads. So you can see they're quite complex in their design, even quite complex in the material. If we take this off, this is part of what you're paying for. This complicated liner. And this is one of the cheek pads. You can see the cheek pad, obviously because it's removable, it's got the tab that locks it in place, and they're very quick and easy to remove these. You can see it's made up of multiple layers of foam. So there's quite a lot goes into that. And if we have a look at the skull cap, this is the Arai one, and it's really complicated. There are a lot of different layers of foam on here. It's designed to be an exact fit, and it's designed to work and last. How well they last, we'll come to that in a minute. But if we compare this one to this cheap one, again, you know, you can see the difference in the complexity between how they're made. That's part of the reason why you're paying more money. Now, fit is totally subjective. I can't tell you that because this Arai, because it's so complicated made, it will fit better. All I can tell you is from my experience, since I started riding in 1996, the first helmet I ever bought was an Arai after advice from one of my mates. And ever since then, they fitted me absolutely perfectly. Never any problems. Shoei's didn't used to fit me perfectly, but now they do. Sharks, for instance, probably about half the range fits me spot on. It varies. There are some expensive brands that don't fit me very well in some of the lines, but typically a more expensive one tends to fit better, but only you can find out when you go in a shop and try it. As an example, this is another cheap lid that I cut up a while ago. This one, after half an hour of wearing it, was like somebody was running a knife across my forehead. It just didn't suit me. This is a very simple, really hard, super hard polystyrene there. And that goes a long way towards part of that fit, that softness in the polystyrene. Again, let's have a look at the front of this Arai. It's a lot softer in there, much softer. So you've got that give where it just fits, molds to your head very quickly. That's part of the reason why you shouldn't use a second-hand helmet, because it's going to have shaped itself to the shape of the previous owner, and also you don't know how it's been cared for. If you know somebody really well, they haven't had a helmet long, and you know they've looked after it, then maybe, but try to avoid it. Now, every helmet has to have a minimum angle of view for the visor. It must have a minimum amount you can see to the sides and top and bottom. Some helmets you'll get a much deeper view out of the bottom. Schuberths, for instance, give you quite a good deep view. That's great for touring, if you're looking down at your tank bag or just trying to see in your pockets. And most helmets now come with a pin lock. And that's somewhere else you can find a difference in the prices. You'll get a pin lock 30, 70, 120, Max Vision, Evo. The 30, 70, 20, they're the levels of performance of that pin lock, and 30's cheaper. 120 is more expensive. You also get the Max Vision. They're wider. They're often set into the visor, which makes the visor more expensive to produce. But you'll also find some helmets that have an anti-fold coating inside the visor. I actually prefer pin locks. It's easier to look after. You can just pop the pin lock out. You do have to be careful typically with something that's got an anti-fold coating. You just need to be careful with how you care for it. So here we can see a pin lock Evo on this Shoei Neotech. You get a good wide angle of view. That one's not actually set into the visor, but you don't notice it when it's on. On this cheaper, this is quite an old lid. This is not even marked, but you can really see the difference in the design of that pin lock. They have actually evolved. This is a really old lid. Now, pin locks typically aren't installed when you get the helmet because they're not actually homologated for use within the visor. Some helmets have very high clarity visors, like the Schuberth. They're very proud of how clear their visors are. But typically putting a pin lock in will reduce that clarity slightly. Now, the difference between that slight reduction in clarity, which you're really going to struggle to see, and getting a steamed up visor, I'd say it's well worth it. So if we have a look at this other lid that I'd cut up, you can see this has got a drop down sun shield, and this is in a really budget lid. You won't find that in any Arais currently. Now that's because Arai strongly believes that having this cutaway inside the helmet reduces the integrity of the shell. You have to have a very hard inner liner, and that is super hard. But they believe that. Having said that, there are some of the premium lids. This Shoei Neotech got a drop-down sun shield. I'm sure Arai could increase their market share by installing drop-down sun shields, but they passionately believe that they don't want to do it. So in a way, it's kind of impressive that they don't want to do that. But you won't get one. Now, I do genuinely prefer to wear a black visor. Here's one. The problem with this is it's going to add another 40 to 60 pounds to the helmet. That is an issue. What I like is, especially because I wear glasses, if I've got a visor with a pin lock, so I've got the plastic, the pin lock, a drop-down sun shield, and my glasses, that's 4 layers of plastic. Let's take the pin lock out because I don't tend to use a pin lock with a black visor because I'm only going to be wearing that during the day in good weather. But still, you've got the visor, drop-down sun shield, and glasses. It's just reducing the clarity all the time, and also you get this light patch, light line underneath the sun shield, which I find distracting. So I really like a dark visor, and they kind of look cool. But of course, wearing a black visor is technically illegal. But you'll be really hard pressed to find a police officer who's going to pull you up on it unless you're riding like an idiot, or they need an excuse to do something, or you're riding just being an idiot in the dark with one. Carry a clear visor, use common sense. Now, any visor also has to be extremely strong so that if it gets hit by a stone, it's not going to shatter or the stone just come through, but you know, it has to be tough. So let's have a look at this. What we've got left of this one. And you can see, look how, that's just the little vent popping off, that clips back in. Look how that bends inside out. It's so strong. And I don't expect it to be any different. There we go, pull that off of there. It's still strong, you know, and there's no crazing to that. Typically you get 2 types of plastic used in visors, plexiglass and polycarbonate. It's really important to know that these plastics can be very severely damaged, sometimes over time, by using the wrong cleaners. And some of those cleaners can be even marketed as visor cleaners. I only ever tend to use plain water to clean my visors, just laying a sheet of kitchen paper over it, soaked in water, let that soak the bugs off, and then they tend to float off. If you use the wrong cleaner, it can degrade the plastic, and the first you might know of it is when it gets hit by a stone and it's gone brittle. It shows up more in some lids. So HJCs, for instance, some of them have a clip on the bottom which locks in. It's quite a neat system. It locks down easy. Sometimes you can kind of see it. But they're renowned for having cracks coming out from behind them. Now, there's no reason why that plastic should crack, except if something has degraded the plastic. The screws that go through there introduce a stress point to the plastic. And by doing that, as any of the cleaner gets trapped behind that big plastic cover, it doesn't get rinsed off and it's sitting there all the time attacking the plastic. And those stress points accentuate what's happening to that plastic and cause it to craze. So even some cleaners that are meant to be for visors are not safe on there. I am going to be testing them soon, and I'm going to be testing them all to find out how safe they are. Tell me what you use to clean your visor in the comments below, and I'll make sure it's included in that test. Now, you'd expect a good quality lid to have effective ventilation on it that cools your head. That's really important, obviously, for keeping your concentration up. Exhaust ports can help draw the air out through the back of the helmet. Now, on here, you see we've got some exhaust ports. They were closable on here, and you can see that hole comes through to here. And the idea is that's part of the reason this inner section keeps a bit of clearance there for the air to rush through and be drawn out of the back of the helmet. We've also got exhaust ports down here, and these are fed from these holes here. So if we have a look at the inner shell here, you can see that's one side of one of the intake ports on the top of the head, and that feeds down through here. And we've got the exhaust that feeds down through here, and we've got one of the other exhaust ports which is on the side of the lid here, and that feeds out of here, or draws the air out of here. Also on an Arai, you'll find typically these brow vents. Now what these do is feed into these bits on the brow here and blow across the front of your head, or actually here they feed down and just cool across here. Now obviously you've also got the chin vent. Have a look at the Arai here. The idea is that blows through, and that blows through onto your mouth. Sometimes you close it, sometimes they don't have them on there. And it also blows up here, and it should blow across the visor. You'll feel it cooling your brow, and it should also help clear the misting from the visor. Now if we have a look at this cheap lid, you can see we've still got a feed coming in here to the mouth. It closes, and can't actually see anywhere that it feeds into that top. Now we've got the vents here at the top. These are actually had lots of intakes here, makes it look very effective. But actually, if you have a look, we've got a slot coming through here. So we've actually got a slot all the way through, which feeds down into quite a narrow gap there. We've also got this exhaust vent, which doesn't go anywhere on that side. If we have a look at the other bit of polystyrene, so there it is. That exhaust vent on the middle goes into there, and you've got that little tiny hole there. So they might have kept it small for structural integrity to make sure it's passing test. Too many holes in there and it's gonna be a problem. And again, that's what you're paying for with an expensive helmet, is that research and development to making sure you can have plenty of ventilation, plenty of air movement, plenty of holes in the lid, but it still be a safe helmet. Now, lots of vents and spoilers aren't necessarily a good thing. They could snag on the road. So this cheap one is actually good. It's, you know, there's very little on there. You've got this shape in the helmet here, which is unlikely to catch it. Any change in shape, the smooth as that, could snag and could cause your head to get caught up. On an Arai, you can see they have this very smooth shell design. You've got these vents, but they're designed to pull off in a crash and then leave you with this. They're designed to pop off, snap off, and just brush off if you're sliding down the road. They leave you with a super smooth shell. Now some manufacturers are using MIPS. In fact, this bell has MIPS. If we look inside, that moves gently on your helmet. It just gives a little bit of movement between your head and the inner shell. And the idea of that is if it snatches on the road, that rotational force is reduced to the amount that gets through to your brain, causing your brain to shake, which can be extremely damaging. So again, not all manufacturers are using that. Arai are using their very smooth shell design. Varies across manufacturers, but again, that's really down to the research and development. But that ventilation, yeah, you're going to see a huge difference in ventilation. What you might find in some helmets, let's look at this one I cut before, are these deep channels, which could be great for carrying air through, but actually what they're doing is creating a change in that density of the foam, in that polystyrene, because this is super hard stuff. But by cutting it into channels, it effectively makes it a bit softer in a crash. Does it make it any less safe? There's so many tests that can be done, but ultimately a real world crash, what you're paying for is this different density, this development into having a hard outer shell and a soft inner. It's the same across more expensive helmets. They're not more expensive just because they got that name on there. What you choose is going to come down to your budget, but ultimately try a helmet on and buy it from a reputable dealer. Just try it on, make sure it's comfortable. And when you're trying it on, feel really carefully for any pressure points. If you can feel a pressure point after 2 or 3 minutes of wearing it in the shop, after half an hour, that could be agony. So take your time and really try those helmets on. So what do you wear? Let us know in the comments below, because I'm really interested in what kind of helmets everybody's wearing. And as for the difference in how well an expensive lid or a cheap lid will last, let's find out. So I'm here with John Mansfield. He's a motorcycle instructor and a member of the Bennett's Bike Social Test Team. John, you've got 2 helmets here, haven't you?
Yeah.
A Shoei Multi-Tech, and I don't know how old these are, and an MT Atom that you reviewed for us. You got that a year ago?
About a year, about 12 months ago, yeah.
So that's 150 quid helmet?
Yeah.
The Multi-Tech was superseded really by the Neotech, which has now been superseded by the Neotech 2. That's a £520 helmet.
Yeah, that would have been 400 quid in its
This
day,
would have been, yeah. So, how do they compare?
Well, on the whole, I mean, they're both used for different purposes. That's more of like a motorway helmet. This is more of like, that's to and from work.
Yeah.
And this is sort of at work.
Okay.
So in that respect, it's...
So you put a lot of miles on that, haven't you, in the last year?
Oh, yeah.
Probably, you know, I mean, you've had your, what, 5?
5 years.
No more than that, isn't it?
Maybe 6. Yeah.
Maybe 7, you said the other day. Plus, you didn't get it new, did you?
No, a friend of mine who was a bike examiner, he gave up doing bikes. He hadn't worn it. I mean, I know him, and he hadn't been using it as a football or anything.
Yeah, because we should say you shouldn't really buy a second-hand
No,
helmet.
not really. No, you shouldn't. No.
But yeah, so you put a lot of miles on it. I mean, you ride all day, every day, and I guess that's the thing with this one. You're in it all day, every day.
Yeah.
For the last year, have you been in that pretty well all day, every day?
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Yeah. 5 days a week.
Yeah.
It's on my head.
Yeah. So when you first got that though, I gave it to you to do the review, didn't I? And taking it home, it was a noisy.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, one of the things is the noise of it. It's deafening.
Really?
When I picked it up from you when I was riding home, it was just one side. I mean, obviously, it just might be a fault. All these helmets are the same because it was just on one side. So it was just a fault with this particular one. I don't know, but the noise was horrendous.
Yeah.
And in the end, when I got home, it's just to put a little bit of to try and stop the, but it didn't really make a lot of difference, to be honest with you. But the fact that I don't really use it on motorways or long runs, it's just round town and what have you. It's not really an issue for me. But if I was commuting in it, it would be a big issue. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What about? So how do they compare in So what's the ventilation like on them?
About the same, really. The top vent on this one is great. It's really easy to get to.
Yeah.
Just slide it forward and slide it back, and you can as soon as you open it up, you can feel a colder jet air go on the top of your head straight away.
It's really like the technology's changed, isn't it? You can see here it's like just holes straight up, and now more and more we're having ports that drive things down and drive the air down. Yeah. I mean, this is a very old technology helmet, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a little bit. But for its time, I think it was all right. But the vents are about to say the vent on that is very good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, we're talking about what? That's £150 helmet.
Yeah, 150 quid.
This was probably about 400 quid, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The Neotech 1 was replaced by the Neotech 2.
If I want to replace that with a brand new one, what did you say it was?
520 is the Neotech 2, which replaced the Neotech 1, which replaced this.
Yeah.
So it's quite old.
It is quite old.
So what's been the difference in, to be fair, obviously this is a lot older, but they've had kind of similar amounts of wear, haven't they?
Yeah, I'd say about equal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one's not looking bad, but it hasn't, I noticed it hasn't got a removable lining, has it? You can take the cheek pads out, but that's it.
But that's all you can do.
Pretty well all helmets now have got removable linings, haven't they?
As this one has. All the lining comes out of this one.
But that lining looks like it's coming out on its own.
It is starting to come apart a little bit. I mean, this is a year of use and, I don't know, let's guess, best guess, sort of 20,000 miles, say 10, 15 maybe.
Yeah, because I guess because it's all day, every day, but you're not doing long distance.
No, I'm not. It's just round town and really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's this is from amount of hours spent on your head. It's quite high.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's you can see that it's all starting to come apart a little bit.
Yeah, have you trimmed this?
I had to cut that because it was whipping me neck.
Yeah.
When I was going for if you went any speed,
and it's all fraying apart.
You can see it's all frayed. It's all
Whereas this one's actually, you know, you've got a bit of wear here, and it's pilling up. But
yeah,
I mean, it's all.
Yeah, I mean they're both on there. They've both pretty much had it now.
I don't know. That looks in a bit better condition.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially considering it's looking a bit green.
But I don't know. It must be my hair dye. But I mean, as term as mileage is wise, that's a lot older and higher mileage than this is.
Yeah. And you say like the feel of them.
This is a bit of a flimsy feel to it. Yeah, I mean, a difference of 350 quid is quite noticeable.
Yeah.
Really. If I was to do this, look, it feels like it's broken.
Yeah,
almost,
yeah.
You know?
But this is just a plastic shelled helmet.
It is, plastic.
It's a resin, and the technology keeps changing with them, doesn't it? But
yeah.
I mean, I guess 150 quid. You know, for you, really, that's pretty well got to go now. But if that was each year, I mean, I guess we're talking about a £520 helmet, which should last you. Well, this one, you know, you're probably. It's hard to say whether it's a false economy having a cheap lid. Over the time for you,
I guess. In the end, it might work out about the same. I guess if that's double the price, but it lasts twice as long.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if I was just sort of commuting, I don't know, sort of 20-minute commute of a morning, wouldn't be going that. And I don't know if that must be a fault with this particular helmet, but if it wasn't for that deafening noise on the left,
yeah, you'd be happy with it.
Yeah. That's had a year's hard use.
Yeah.
That may be equivalent to sort of 2, maybe 3 to your average Joe.
And what's it like with earplugs in?
What?
You don't wear earplugs, do you?
No, I don't.
So somebody wearing earplugs with that probably wouldn't be quite as. And wear earplugs. What do you tell your students?
I don't, to be honest with you. I don't mention about earplugs.
What would you tell them about buying a helmet?
Well, really, I mean, what we're sort of bound to say is that if you've got a few quid to spend on one, great. But if you are on a budget and you put sort of 50, 60 quid's all you've got.
Yeah.
As long as it fits you correctly,
yeah.
You look after it. You don't paint it or put stickers all over it or anything.
Yeah.
And it's got the European standard on it.
Yeah.
Then it is fit for purpose.
Yeah, and get it from a reputable dealer.
Don't buy them off the internet or anything because you never know.
Yeah, or at least if you're buying it from the internet, buy it from an established.
And of course, you don't get a chance to try it on in the initial instance either.
No. But yeah, make sure you buy it from a reputable dealer.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Not really
go to your local dealers.
Yeah. Nice one. Cheers for that.
No worries.
Hi, I'm Walter White. Why spend several hundreds of pounds on a lid when you can get one for a fraction of the price? Let's find out. Have you stopped wearing that now?
I have, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because the CVT site where we are, there's all bushes and what have you, and I've just put it down, working. Yeah. And I've picked it up and put it on my head to do a demonstration. Got this searing pain just here. Yeah. Took it off, and a little spider. And we Googled it, and my face come out here. Yeah. Oh, it was bloody agony. And it was a false widow. And then I sort of like this, and it ran into the little holes in the polystyrene, and was in there. And I managed to grab him by his leg and rub him out. But since then, I'm thinking, oh, has he got like laid eggs in it or something? And then after that, I haven't bothered wearing it. Yeah, I know it's on its last legs anyway now, but that just put me off really. I'm not putting it on again, just in case I get like spiders' eggs laid under me, laid in my ears or something. That was grim.